You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Chief. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Resurrection After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Resurrection After Show.
Welcome back, viewers. It is Resurrection here at AFTERBUZZ TV. We're talking episode 107, Schemes of the Devil. The Devil. The Devil! We're coming into your home, much like this song is coming home. Yeah, so beautiful. So beautiful. So sweet. I love this song. I'm your host, Zach Wilson. Joining me on tonight's panel is the ever-talented Mr. Matthew Lieberman.
Hello. I'm so glad that we're back. We weren't here last week, and I was really bummed about it.
Yeah, we were off for Easter,
Yeah.
which I was confused by. I get that there's a religious audience for this show,
Right.
But this show seems like the exact show that should be
perfect
airing
show to
during
watch
Easter.
on Easter.
It's a day about resurrection.
Exactly.
People.
It's honestly, it's a poor programming decision. Although I then again, with the whole Rachael getting shot and then coming back, maybe that wouldn't have played really well on Easter, and that was the whole point. You know what I mean?
She didn't wait 3 days. You're supposed to wait 3 days. That's what the rules say.
See, you gotta do it by the book, and when the book is the Bible, you really gotta do it by the book.
Yeah, I mean, one guy who in Resurrection was, as we got to know him a little bit more, is very much trying to play by the book, by the Bible. And this one, that's Gary.
Yeah.
Gary, who at the very tail end of last week, we saw him kidnap Rachael.
Right, and we were all like, oh, snap. And the guy's clearly unraveling. He has a drinking problem.
He has a drinking problem. We meet his wife in
Yes.
this one, and she's been very clear in the fact that he has been, I don't know if he was abusive or anything, but they needed counseling that Pastor Tom attempted to help with.
Right.
But he couldn't. So
Yeah.
even Pastor Tom's like, both people need to be part of a relationship.
Exactly. There's some things that even counseling can't help, and this guy is clearly deeply troubled. He's a very religious guy, and the implications of these people walking around frankly terrify him, and I don't blame him in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why that would be terrifying. It's something you cannot explain, and that I think is more frightening than anything in the world.
I mean, that's what they say. It's what humans are most frightened of what they cannot understand.
Exactly. And so where we catch up with them, with Rachael and Gary and his two buddies who he conned into doing this with him, Carl the cop.
Yeah, poor dumb Carl.
I didn't catch the other guy's name. I think we met him a few weeks ago. But
yeah, an older gentleman.
Yeah. They've got her tied up in this cabin in the middle of nowhere, just yelling at her. Just wait. They want answers.
Right. Well, the big issue here is that Fred had told Gary that Jacob sensed Caleb. So now Gary wants to apply this principle by force to Rachael, which is, really unfair. Really unfair. And one of the interesting things that I feel like we could easily gloss over here is she says, I'm dying of thirst and I'm really hungry. And he says, we've given you food, we've given you water. Now, we could just take that to mean, okay, they aren't giving her enough food and water. But we have to remember that the returned have massive appetites.
Yes. They could have given her like a normal day's worth of food, and that's nothing to her, as we see from what Jacob eats, the way Caleb ate.
Yeah,
their metabolism is at a rate that nobody else can.
It's off the charts,
incomparable to normal
off
humans.
The charts.
And I mean, part of what I think Gary is latching onto is just that it's what he's trying to find an answer, and for him, the idea that these people could be from the devil because the devil hides in things that you want. He gives you what you want to then come in the back door and stab you in the back. And that's the way he sees Rachael, and he's demanding answers. Like he wants to know what's going on. And
are there other returned out there? What exactly are you? He wants he needs to know something. It's far bigger than he could possibly comprehend.
Yeah, and Tom is just super worried at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
He's running around he goes to Marty first. It's like, I don't know where she is. She didn't take any of her stuff. They go check out her room. Like, clearly she didn't just walk away. She didn't just like pack up her things and go to find her family. She left either in a hurry or
she was snatched. And thank goodness, Gary was as
predictable.
Well, yeah, not just predictable, but like dumb as he was. He wasn't careful about the details. He left his truck at the church.
Yep.
If he had paid attention to detail and had figured, maybe I should leave my truck somewhere else, then we might not have been able to get there in time, and both Fred and Rachael could be dead.
Well, they already expected, they already suspected him.
Yeah.
Because as Tom was saying, there were so many angry people at the church when Gary was the most vocal of them, except maybe Helen.
Right.
Which I'm glad she wasn't back because I just want to punch her.
Right. See, now that's something curious. Is what if Helen was at that cabin? What would she have done? Would she have gone so far as to kill? I would say no.
Very interesting.
To me, like she's a busybody. She might have let him kill her, but I don't think that she would have had the guts to do it herself.
I agree. Helen doesn't strike me as the violent type. She's the town gossip, the one who loves to be the center of attention in this like tiny little community, and will stir the pot as she sees fit.
Exactly. She's not the pot. She's the pot stirrer. She's not the flame. Okay,
Yeah.
She's a spoon.
Or rather, she's the person. She's trying to stop the spoon from stirring the pot. She wants the soup to stay. She wants stagnant.
Yes, she would like a stagnant soup that does not reduce in any way.
No spiciness, no surprises.
Nothing too salty. She would like a nice bland broth, the same that it was when she was a girl. Yes, as long as she's the one who decides how it tastes.
We've gone way farther with this soup metaphor.
But the other guys, they're not into it, and they leave. And I felt so terrified for Rachael. She hears them go, and she's like, "Oh God, please don't leave me." And I'm like, "Oh, what is this guy gonna do to her?"
I mean, there's all level of terrible things he could do to her while she's in this cabin. It's scary,
right?
And we feel scared for her. And meanwhile, Tom they've gone to Jacob now because they had the same thought. Maybe we can find her with Jacob. I think Jacob was lying though too.
To me, it's not a lie. He was not telling the truth, but he was afraid. He flat out said he was afraid. He didn't want to do it. I think that he's so young, he doesn't know how to process the extra gifts that he has.
Okay.
He can't really express them in any kind of external way. It's so much information, so much stimulus that it's difficult to articulate perhaps, and maybe I'm speaking out of school, in a way that when you have Asperger's or you're on the autistic spectrum, social cues aren't necessarily easily processed, and the way that your brain works isn't necessarily digestible to us.
Well, the way that any conventional superhero story where a kid has the powers at a young age or something like that, they have the powers.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily know how to use them. They don't know what they use them on instinct or anything. Harry Potter he can use magic. He doesn't understand what he's doing.
Right.
And Jacob, he sensed him at that moment. He knew how he did it. He didn't know that he was at that moment channeling Rachael, which he totally was, because we see him like with his hands behind his back. Why were they behind his back?
Right. And they were tapping. They're frantically tapping out a message almost, or clenching and unclenching. And then we cut back to Rachael, and she's doing the exact same thing.
She's trying to get out of the.
Oh,
she's struggling. She's trying to get out of the rope,
See,
and that's
I thought it was
Jacob trying to. I thought it was just. I think she was just kind
I
of
think you're right.
fidgeting.
I think you're
like
right.
she's trying to get out, and Jacob's just mimicking it with his hands, without realizing what he's doing. It must be something like when the returned are thinking about another returned, they form or more fully connect that a psychic connection of some kind. That so he started to, because he was thinking about Rachael, being asked to think about her. He clearly knew who she was.
Right.
Tom reminds him that they all were like, but the three of them were like best friends.
Right. Well, here's something interesting, and this is where we get into kind of the big ideas portion of the show. Are their bodies real? Are their bodies real? I mean, they look real, they feel real, they sound and smell and probably taste real, but no. But and I know I'm jumping ahead, but Caleb's blood disappearing when the rest of his body disappeared, even though it had been removed from his body, speaks to the theory in my head that maybe their bodies don't actually exist at all, aren't made of anything. When they cease to exist, when they cease to be, they simply cease to be. Which, if they were real, physics would not allow that to happen.
Yes. Okay.
So here's the interesting thing. If Jacob trying to find or think about Rachael causes him to exhibit some of her behavior, perhaps, it's almost like looking into another one of these, let's just call them vessels, not even bodies. But, if they are just souls that are plugged into some kind of vessels.
Well, it's interesting because when people talk about the soul, you often think of it as the soul is not tied to the body. When you die, the soul leaves the body. Then the body was just the physical, like almost like a Voltron type thing that the soul just like, all right, I'm going to control this for a while, and then when it starts
they were
failing,
in the lions in Voltron. They were inside the lions.
Exactly. Like the soul is inside, controlling the human body.
Okay.
You see what I'm getting at now?
I get it now. I thought you were doing something like, I'm
not suggesting they all combine to form a mega returned.
Okay.
However,
all right.
No, I'm not going to get
No,
started.
it's not like a real steel kind of thing where you're controlling it remotely with your motions.
No.
Okay.
Like the soul, if the soul's inside of us,
right?
And but when the body expires, it needs to go elsewhere,
right?
And so, what if there was a backup?
Okay,
or a second backup?
Yeah,
as we find Rachael has.
Exactly. If there's just like a pool of energy that's creating these bodies and keeping them animated and keeping them on the planet, then I feel like anyone who's in the queue who's already on the planet, if their body expires, if there's enough energy, they just respawn, as it were.
And it just raises the question as to why each of these people are back. And that's as now we're going to see more of them coming back, as Caleb predicted foreshadowed for us. Maybe we'll get a little bit more of a clue as to why these particular people came back. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Sure.
We've got Rachael still holed up in the
jeopardy.
cabin. Tom and Agent Bellamy confront Fred about it. They want him to help. They don't have any evidence. I feel like there's enough evidence.
Right, like the missing truck, the disappearance, the drinking problem, the motive.
They're not asking him to press charges.
Right,
They're
investigate.
Just like, I think she's missing. I'd like to file a missing persons report.
She has been missing for 24 hours. Like, that's allowed.
That's enough that, like, the cops should be all over it. And that's when Carl, who we didn't talk about, but him and the other guy were just like, they washed their hands of it. As soon as they see that this is not just, this is going beyond just trying to scare her into helping, that she doesn't know anything, they are out and they leave Gary to it, which is really anything that goes on beyond there. They're still, in my mind,
liable.
they're still completely liable. Not just a legal standpoint, but they have
They're
left him
responsible.
alone, knowing that he is drinking,
he is
unstable,
unstable, and he is armed.
Yes. They should have immediately gone to Fred. And Carl,
and Fred totally sees it in an instant as Carl comes in late, obviously shaken. And rather than tell Agent Bellamy and Tom, he goes in and tries to take care of it himself, which, I mean, badass Fred slamming him up against the lockers like that. But, get some backup for God's sake.
Yeah, I think he imagines he's just going to find Gary. I don't think he expected him to be armed necessarily. He just expected to find him.
You expect someone to be an unarmed kidnapper?
I think he just figured he knew him.
Right.
He could talk. I mean, that's what he says.
He says, I thought I could talk him down.
Yeah.
I thought I could make him let her go.
Yeah, but so when he sees Carl, he just instantly knows. And that was like, I guess, he knows Carl is friends with Gary. And that, like, there's enough reason to suspect at this point. And when he sees Carl, he's like, all right, something's up. And I think he figures if he can talk, I think once he gets there, once that whole stand-up's going, I think what he's thinking on the way there is, if I can get there, if I can talk him down, I can keep this from being a thing. I can keep it from getting out into the public. Rachael doesn't have to tell anybody about this, and we don't have to have more problems, because he's already had a lot of problems with dealing with Caleb, dealing with just people's questions about this whole thing.
The man is just exhausted. He's at wit's end. And
all
been
the ways,
dealing with a lot.
Yeah, all the ways this has shaken up his family. It's tough for him to deal with. I think he really wishes he could just wash his hands of this whole thing.
Yeah.
As we saw, like, when he was talking with Henry earlier on in the episode, he says Fred is still not on board. Like, you think this is really your Jacob?
Yeah.
And Henry's fully on board at this point. Like, the thought of losing him sort of drove him to the point where it's like, no, that feeling of I'm so scared to lose this kid felt real. That was a father's fear.
So even if this kid isn't real, he's real to me.
Exactly.
Well,
it's like, I think it's more of like, even if, because he's there. Right. As far as they can tell, he's a person that exists.
Yeah.
I think it's more of along lines of, it may not be my original son, but whether he's adopted or not, or an alien, or wherever he came from, I am going to take care of him.
Right. He's filled my home with life again.
Exactly.
But, Fred doesn't tell anyone. He goes to the cabin, and when he gets there, he is relatively quickly disarmed. He goes and frees Rachael, and then Gary pulls a gun on him. He has to let go of his piece, and things get real quick.
And I think even at that point, Fred is still thinking he can talk him down.
But wait, even before that, we got to talk about what happens when...
Oh, my God.
Yes, so Gary finally unsheathes his knife, and he squares off with Rachael. I say squares off as if she could fight. She's tied to a chair. But
we don't know what she can do.
Right, so she brings up a very good, very relevant point.
What you think I'm from the devil, or I'm the devil? Why do you really think? What do you think a knife can do to me?
Yeah. What, you really think I come from the devil? What if you're right? Do you think that I can be hurt? Exactly. Now later, of course, she says that she was just trying to get him to leave her alone,
which totally makes sense. And we don't really know Rachael well enough. She may be that badass where she's just like, instantly can flip on, like, she knows what she needs to do to convince him to let her go.
Right.
And she just lays it on thick.
Yeah.
Heavy acting bug. But what if she's not lying there? What if she's talking from a place of truth about that? She says, "Do you really think you can hurt me?"
She looked incredibly assured when she was laying all this out. Now, I know that it was a threat, and threats can be empty, but we have nothing. There has been nothing so far to lead us to believe that Rachael is a good enough actress to sell the level of menace behind her words.
Exactly. I am something you will never understand, is what she says.
I'm something you will never understand. I will haunt you. You will see me in your dreams, or I will be in your nightmares. Basically. Now, we don't know if she's from the devil. I don't think that she is.
I don't think this is like, it's the fallen angel Lucifer who is unleashing the return upon the world.
It's not clear.
What she came from, though, could have a devilish purpose to it. Some kind of nefarious plot to who knows what.
Well, honestly, it could be the other end of the spectrum. It could be, the Archangel Michael giving I've thrown this out before, that we're being tested, testing the human race and deciding if they're worth keeping because of what they've done to the planet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting thought. I mean, even because the river is a major theme, we could get like a weird happening type deal. If you remember that M. Night Shyamalan movie, where the Earth is reacting to what we've done to it.
Right.
And because these people have, up until this point at least, their bodies have been in contact with the river, has been in contact with nature, and then spit back out with this crazy mathematical formula that is a constant throughout each one. There's some force that is testing. I like the idea that it's testing us.
Right? It also just feels unique.
Yes.
We've never come across something like that.
Well, God, the Devil, and Bob.
Sure, but we're not including.
If anybody remembers
comedies.
that old animated NBC sitcom.
Yeah, we're not including comedies, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. Unfortunately, of course, the situation escalates to a point that it cannot be controlled.
He does cut her, and she does bleed.
So we know,
blood.
okay, at the very least, these bodies operate like bodies. She acts like she's hurt, or at least shocked.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know you thought she was going to suddenly be healed by the time everybody else got there.
That's what I thought.
We know that they do have some extraordinary healing abilities, which we'll get into in just a minute when we talk about Maggie and Ward. But during the standoff, it all goes to hell when Bellamy and Tom show up.
Yes.
And as they gesture at each other, and Marty says, "Drop it, or I'm going to have to take you down. I don't want to do that." Eventually, Rachael tries to get away, winds up
getting shot in the chest. She falls to the ground, dead. Pastor Tom in tears. Great performances all around.
Yes, it was a fantastic performance from Mr. Hildreth, and I'm sorry I don't have the guy's name like Gary on me, but he did a great job. At that moment where I'm so sorry, Fred. I didn't. That is remorse. That is true remorse.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to hurt anybody. He just wanted answers. He wanted to know where Caleb went. He wanted to get back at the man who had killed his cousin.
Yeah.
It's really where all this came from.
That's where all of it came from. It wasn't about murdering. And also, on some level, I feel like he thought that if he shot her, like, nothing would happen. Like,
yeah.
That's kind of like the last thing when he's pointing a gun at her, and he's like, I don't care if she dies. It's because she's already dead. This probably won't kill her. It'll just expose her as a demon spawn. And then when, bullet goes into body starts bleeding, body dies, you realize what you did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He can see the consequences of his actions coming at him in that moment.
Right. Now, meanwhile, or later on, Fred returns to the police station, and everything stops for just a moment because everyone knows how badly he screwed up. He tried to explain to Agent Bellamy, and he just quietly is just like, yeah, like it. Not necessarily. It didn't feel like outright judgment. Like sometimes things go bad, but he knows that Fred screwed up.
Yeah, he should have taken backup. Fred knows he should have taken backup.
That Agent Bellamy should have been the backup. That he should have been open and honest with Agent Bellamy when he knew that Carl was involved.
Yeah.
It's a big screw.
It's one of those things, and although he may get some chance at some penance, but there's more to the science of all this going on, because we saw a little bit more of like the body can get shot, the body can die, but now we find through Dr. Eric Ward's research that their blood, Jacob's blood, can cure cancer.
The white cells in his blood can cure cancer because Dr. Eric Ward has leukemia, and he tested Jacob's blood on his own cells, and the leukemia went away.
Yeah, she keeps telling him, "Where did you get leukemia blood?"
Right.
Where did you get leukemia blood?
And that's when I thought the reveal was going to be that he was some kind of government scientist.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, that he had like some vault of all these cancerous diseases.
That's just because we watch Helix, and they did that on Helix.
Yeah. There's no magic burner for this one.
No.
No, but he's sick.
Yeah.
And now this is now, I'm afraid of him now because the fact that Jacob has the potential to cure him makes him a very scary villain. He works for the government. He has a huge amount of personal gain to have. Although if he dies, just go die in the river and then you'll be fine, I guess.
Right. But yeah, there's a deep level of personal investment in getting this research off the ground, in controlling the flow of returned blood.
And with this twist, I think he sees, like, this is how I can get Maggie to come with me, because clearly he still has a thing for her.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's like, there's no time to waste.
Remembers,
I'll get your boots and your coat. We're running off to Atlanta. Or where did they go? Maryland.
Atlanta.
I don't know, somewhere.
They're not going to Hotlanta. They're going to Maryland. They're going to have crab cakes and they're do cancer research.
And be on the forefront of curing the human race of cancer.
Exactly. Which, I mean, is an amazing thing. But we shouldn't be strapping... We shouldn't be strapping returned to chairs and stealing all of their miraculous blood.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it does raise a question, though. If Jacob's blood could save millions of people from dying of cancer,
right?
To what extent does...
Ooh, that's a great moral question.
There's a huge moral question behind that. Yeah. Because, like, you really subject this kid to all sorts... And this is a...
Right. But that's the thing is, that kid is technically dead. He's legally dead. So on some level, there is someone who's going to say, these are dead people who can save living people. They've already lived their lives. Some of them threw them away. They don't deserve freedom. Let's use them to preserve the people who are still alive, who haven't already died. There's someone who's definitely going to feel that way. And I know that that's the wrong perspective, but on some level, I understand it.
It's one of those things about medical research that at what point does a risky test and that might hurt the person who you're testing it on, where does the bad of that outweigh the benefit of saving potentially thousands or millions of people?
Right.
And it's a line that I think a lot of researchers have to walk.
And here's another fascinating question, because we, in this story, discovered that Caleb's blood completely disappeared. It's gone. So what happens if you inject someone with the blood of a returned, and that return disappears, just like Caleb?
All your blood's gone.
Right. Is all your blood gone? Do you die? Does the cancer reappear? What happens? We don't know. We also don't know if injecting someone with a dead, alive person's blood, it worked on a blood sample, but when it's being processed by a living human body, can they remain alive? Like, what happens to them?
Does it increase their metabolism to the rate of the return? Does we need to find out more about what the returned are before we can really find out what those implications are.
Right. And then also, Caleb's blood disappearing gave me kind of an epiphany in terms of why he may have disappeared at all. Like that, all of these people who are returning maybe were given a gift, were given the second chance. And when he was captured, when he did something wrong and then was put in jail, he can no longer serve a purpose, and he has betrayed whoever gave him the opportunity to come back. So his permission was revoked, so to speak.
Well, the thing is that the moment that he was already in jail, and I guess he was feeling like a little bit sick, but like where it really turned was when Elaine came and saw him and said, I gave back the money, or when he found out that she gave back the money and that all of what he had come back and done was for nothing. And it was at that point where he had like failed to connect with his daughter, and she hated him, and she was very clear, like, I hate you. That was when he disappeared.
What if when you die, whatever your last wish or desire or thought is, when you come back, you're giving a second chance at that purpose, and if you don't accomplish that purpose, or you no longer can, then your time is up.
It's interesting. I mean, it's
vague, I know.
It raises questions that, like, because of who we're seeing coming back, there's more people coming back now, and raising the question of like that any one blanket reason could even apply. There could be specific reasons for each one. There could be...
I feel like there's so many people, they can't all have died in the river. they can't, right?
Well, we'll get into that
okay,
later. I have
okay.
some theories about it. But for now, let's take a little break and let's talk about iTunes. As we often do.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Internet.
Hello, web.
Everyone out there, you've heard it from us plenty of times before, but it doesn't change how important it is to us, to the network, to this podcast, to every podcast here at AfterBuzz TV, that you go onto iTunes, you go onto YouTube, you go onto however you're getting this podcast, and rate and comment and let us know what you think.
Yeah.
It's go onto iTunes. When you leave a comment for us, it doesn't help us feel good about our days.
It does.
It does help us feel. If I light up when I see
But that's
a
not
review.
the only thing.
Yeah, it's fun, but it raises the how can I put this? The credibility of the network as a whole. It shows that it shows the creative people behind these shows how good we're doing, how good the network's doing. Helps keep the lights on at our studios,
Right? Because whatever attention we receive, the more positive we are, on iTunes, on YouTube, the more people who download the podcast, the more people who are talking about it in a positive way. It directly affects who we're able to get on the show. It directly affects whether or not we're able to get set visits, interviews. It's a big deal, and it's also incredibly helpful to our wonderful production staff. We have intrepid engineers who work 70, 80-hour weeks to get you all this crazy content.
Over 70 shows a week that you guys get for free.
For free.
It's huge.
And it legitimately helps keep the lights on. It's how we get sponsors, which is the biggest deal in the world, because that's how we keep our lights on. So please, please, please go to iTunes, go to YouTube, make your love known. AfterBuzz TV needs your help.
It really does help. And you know what it helped us get?
Yes.
Was we announced a little bit this week, but it's going to happen next week. We had to postpone, but Mark Hildreth, aka Pastor Tom, will be joining us in studio next week for the finale wrap-up show,
which is fantastic. And
I'm really excited to meet him. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're gonna just grill him about
Tell me
season
all
2.
the answers you know. You have a direct channel to God, Pastor.
Exactly. I hope you use that line. It's a good line.
I should.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write
write that one down.
Pastor.
Direct
line
to
God. G-D.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jacob.
Yes.
Let's get back into it, because Jacob starts off in the park, and I mean, Jacob's been our main focus. He's been our window into a lot of this, and we see him. He finally seems to be making a friend in the park in the form of this little girl in yellow, Jenny,
which it seemed just a little off from dress choice. It seemed.
Well, yeah, there was something when I saw the dress. I started thinking that's not really time appropriate.
But okay,
yeah, people still dress like that occasionally.
So then when I'm blanking on Jacob's mother's name, and I'm so sorry.
When
Lucille, Frances Fisher Lucille, calls him over to take him back to Agent Bellamy so that they can grill him about where Rachael is. He whispers in Jenny's ear,
much the way Caleb whispered in his ear.
Exactly.
At that same fence or the same park.
Exactly. All kinds of suspicious. And then, Lucille looks around the park. She gets Jacob. She looks at Jenny. She looks around the park. She doesn't see anyone who could be Jenny's mother. Who is she?
Well, she sees a middle-aged woman on the other side of the fence.
Well, at first there's no one. Then that middle-aged woman appears almost out of nowhere. Like she just showed up and it just felt odd. It felt wrong somehow. So it was great seeing that pay off later in the episode when Jenny and her parents are new returned. We got a bunch of new returned. Oh, man,
yeah, a ton. But Jacob's story, to get through it real quick, but Jacob, he throws they take him home and they don't want to let him go. I think Henry and Lucille are very afraid that he's just going to vanish.
Exactly.
At this point.
It's their worst fear.
Yeah, and this is not just a parent's fear of the child could just wander away or get kidnapped. This is they could just be playing with him, building their puzzle or whatever, and he could just
vanish,
and be gone
forever.
And because they have no way of knowing, which is a parent's worst nightmare, but amplified to to the nth degree. And then of course she goes upstairs.
Yeah.
And Jacob's gone.
Yeah, which
After he throws that tantrum about not being let out.
terror. So she and Henry rush over to the playground, to the park, because that's where they think he'll be. They find his bike and they call out for him, where are you? Where are you? And then all of a sudden he comes out of the woods. He just wanted to bring food to his friend and her family. And they step out, and they're like this 1940s, maybe.
Yeah, I had trouble putting a number on exactly when, but I think 30s, 40s.
I feel like mid to late 40s, like post World War II. That's what it seemed like to me.
Maybe I was thinking. I guess the yellow would have been. The yellow screams 50s. Like Jenny's dress sort of screams 50s. Either way, I'm sure we'll get a little bit more information. But either way, not from this time.
Right. They're the first of many.
They are frightened.
Yeah.
Clearly, they don't know who to trust. They don't know what to do. And we're not sure. For a moment, I actually thought Jenny was going to not be there. Like, Lucia was going to be like, who are you talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't you see my friend?
For a hot second, yeah.
And
then,
he's
just seeing all these souls. But here's the interesting thing about these new returned, right? They are all coming to Arcadia. They don't seem to have followed the algorithm that we got for the original.
Well, no, but we haven't found that out yet because so far they all are they've all come back to Arcadia.
Right.
But they all seem to be it's their home. The vet who was he died in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
We basically are
But that's what I'm saying is like he walks into the bar and he just says this isn't Korea, which to me says that he hasn't been awake long, like not long enough to travel all of the distance he would have to travel to get back to Arcadia. Someone would have answered these questions.
But what if he was his ashes were sprinkled in the river the same way that Caleb was? That's what I was assuming, that he was brought back here. I'm trying to find my notes.
No, I'm saying when he awoke, when he returned, that he returned directly to Arcadia and not to somewhere else and traveled to Arcadia. To me, everyone who has come back, their lack of knowledge about anything in the period and how disoriented they are speaks to me that they somehow just directly showed up in Arcadia. I could be completely wrong. It's just how it reads to me right now.
It'll be interesting to get a little bit more information, and if the .38 theory holds up, with three people is a pattern, not a coincidence.
Right.
So I have to assume there is some sort of context to that. But like we're in the police station when we first start to hear about it. Like we get Jenny and the family, but first, this guy wanders in, and like he looks like he's from the '60s. He's got he's got his thin little tie on, and he just sort of wanders in. Like I think I'm in the wrong place. I don't know how they got the street paved so quick. He's so confused. He sees the little glowy screensaver on the computer. What is that thing?
Yeah.
And then I need to sit down.
That's got to be terrifying.
That's the look that I was waiting for from Jacob. Like Jacob was very comfortable with like the phone.
He was so comfortable with the phone and playing the Donkey Kong that he fit Donkey Kong on a phone, and that when you touch it, it works.
Yeah,
like that's crazy.
Jacob was a little bit too quick to
I had a
absorb
thought
it.
about the .38 theory.
Yeah?
Yeah. What if that was the constant of all of the people that they sent down first, but they were almost acting as a beacon? Like they all returned to Arcadia, and somehow whatever this energy force is used them to home in on exactly where they wanted to set up shop.
I mean, like triangulating a signal.
Exactly, like triangulating a signal. Like if there were enough people that it like surrounded globally, surrounded Arcadia in kind of a perfect circle, And
well, just once they all get home, if like these are the people that are coming back are all somehow connected to Arcadia for whatever reason, maybe it's just a test town. Like it's like how Google tests Google Fiber on certain little communities. They're like, we're gonna test sending people back in this small town in the middle of nowhere, and if it works, maybe we'll go wider with it. So I love that idea. Yeah, that that when the three of them got back to the town, now they're like, okay, we've got it lined up and enter, and then they drop hundreds of returned on us.
Hundreds of returned. The town is flooded, and
the phones are going nuts. There's people yelling, "You're in my house." There's somebody like he was waiting for me when they got home. The secretary rushes off. My sister's back. Oh my God!
We close in on Fred, and
he's having it's like that circle thing where there's so much going on he can't even process it.
But at the same time, he goes so far to dare to hope, and he says, "Barbara," and he runs. He runs out of the station.
He's driving as fast as he can, and then there's something blocking
Fred,
the road.
Go, Fred! Like I want it to happen for him. But then he gets all the way there, and it's just Maggie, and she had the exact same thought. She had rushed home, and she didn't come back. But that's because she's already been back, and my prediction is right. And
she might have been back.
She's been back.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
You're the one who caught that.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But the fact that she was back early, well, it kind of messes with the triangulation theory. But either way.
Why?
Well, only if we assume that it's like cell towers that need triangulation.
No, she I'm sure we're going to find out that she woke up somewhere that was not Arcadia. She just never contacted her family, which is going to be incredibly hurtful to Maggie.
Yeah, and to Fred when he eventually finds out.
Oh my God, Fred's going to be devastated.
Just the concept that she cheated on him was bad enough, but that she didn't go back to him when she came back from the dead. Ooh.
Devastating.
And I mean, Maggie just knew. She as soon as it all came together, so she's not here, she knew exactly where she had gone.
Absolutely. She's a smart cookie. And now I'm glad because I don't think she's going to go to Maryland after all. I think she's got something to keep her here.
Couldn't it have just been Marty?
She and Marty, those dummies, they know that they like each other, but they won't say it. And that whole phone call, I was just like, come, Marty,
Where are you going, Marty?
Yeah.
You're just walking. Would Rachel... I think Rachael... Because he said he's driving up Route 11 or whatever. I don't know where that falls exactly.
Right.
But he's always driving away. Would that be 0.38 away? I feel like it would be. They put her a distance away, and that could be from where she died.
That's interesting.
Because she died, no time passed, so it wouldn't have been very far.
So it was relatively instant, yeah.
Interesting.
That is interesting. I'm not entirely sure. And then
because that's a crazy moment when he just pulls up and we see that red dress and it just
it's her all over again, and we're just kind of like, what?
But here's the thing.
Right.
That wasn't the dress she died in this time.
No, it was the dress she died in the first time.
Which set of memories is she gonna have? Is she gonna have both sets?
I don't think she's gonna have memories of the second trip around. I don't think she's gonna remember it.
That raises so many other questions as ooh.
I'm so beyond stoked that there's all these people returning because it honestly now the show is going to build on the promise of the premise. I feel like finally the show is starting.
Yes,
we've set up our main players.
And let's go into predictions on that. Because there are so many things that could happen now. I mean, next week, so now we're going into spoiler territory for next week. For the little preview we saw the military coming in.
Yep.
We saw there are hundreds of them. They have to put them in a gym now because they don't know where to put them all.
And to give them all medical care. Do all that stuff.
There's a helicopter coming in. Is that Marty's running away with Jacob E.T.?
Yeah. Is the government intervention? Does that mean that the world knows or just the government? It's either way.
Ooh.
We're blowing out the world in a huge way.
I'm assuming we're coming back for season 2.
I would like.
Nothing's
to think
been
so.
said.
Yeah.
There's no second book for it to be based on. But I don't think we're gonna get all the answers we want in just one episode. What I think. It's just the government. It's just the government for now, and I'm going to put this on the board.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just the government for now. By the end of the episode, Marty potentially Marty, someone else gets away and leaks it to the world.
I'd love that.
And then next season is about the world's reaction.
I like that. I'm just going to put this question in everyone's brains. What caused all of the people to arrive? Was it always planned to happen at this time? Or was it the disappearance of Caleb or the murder of Rachael that caused them to return?
Interesting.
Was it always planned that way? Or did Caleb somehow see the future or like know that it would happen because he disappeared or because someone would die?
It's a great question, and I'm excited to talk more about it next week. Folks, that's going to do it for us here at AfterBuzz for Resurrection. Thank you so much for tuning in. Matt, where can the people find you online?
The folks can find me on Twitter at Matt Lieberman. That's MattLieberman. And you can also find all of my videos for SourceFed, AfterBuzz TV, and my personal channel on my personal channel, youtube.com/Matthew D. Lieberman.
And you guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all those places at @ZachWilson, ThatzachWilson. Go on the YouTube. You can find all my AfterBuzz, just like Matt. You can find the sketches that Matt and I have done together. There's a lot of them. I look forward to talking with you guys soon. I'm Zach Wilson, and thanks for geeking out with us.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.